It is my great pleasure to try my best to pass on this most wonderful gift of yoga wisdom and this practice of kirtan, or chanting of the holy names of God. Before I attempt to speak, I'd like to take a moment just to pay my respects and gratitude to my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru Siddhasrupananda Paramahamsa, who has given me this matchless gift of the holy names and spiritual wisdom. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these talks or explorations of yoga wisdom can be very short. In other words, if we just to cut directly to the chase, what is the message? What is the wisdom or the knowledge that we're trying to pass on? Is actually very simple and very clear to understand. But also to help us delve into it, to understand it in a complete way, we speak a little longer. So what I'm saying that for is that we could speak for about 5 minutes and I could give you the message, what I want to share tonight. But it may take longer. It might take 3 or 4 hours because there's so many aspects and layers to it. Sometimes we start heading down into a certain area and it just becomes very interesting and exciting and we want to keep exploring it. But tonight's topic is meant to be, what is it? The greatest gift. The greatest gift. We've just passed through the time of giving gifts. Christmas and New Year's is a time when we, sometimes feel obligated to give a gift, don't we? Does anyone still do that? Some people? You got a list of the people who gave us gifts last Christmas, and we're kind of deciding, well, gee, what did they give? They gave me some socks. Okay, I'm like, no, of course you're all very deeply spiritual people here, and you don't have this kind of mentality. So obviously I'm not speaking about you. I'm speaking about other people. So maybe you look at you might even have a list. I know my family used to have a list of who we're giving presents to, so we start planning ahead of time. And usually there is a connection between what gifts we received last Christmas from a particular person and then how much we're going to spend on that person. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Oh, you've never experienced anything like this. I remember when I was younger, a kid, my mum and dad would put together a list and they'd even put a price beside each person's name, how much, they're going to spend on that gift. Anyone else ever done that? Was our family completely weird? No, I think this was a fairly common kind of thing. So there can be a little bit of kind of feeling of obligation in giving a gift. So our experience of receiving gifts and giving of gifts is meant to bring joy and satisfaction to both the giver and the receiver of that gift. There's a saying, it's better to give than to receive. That sounds good in theory, but in our real life, isn't that sometimes a little bit of a struggle? Don't we actually find it kind of easier to receive gifts than to give gifts? Isn't that kind of the reality? It is true. But there's a reason why that saying is there. It is actually a deeply profound spiritual truth that it is better to give than to receive. So there's a couple of things I wanted to read about this. Oh, this is a note I have here. So what is the greatest gift? What's the greatest gift? That's what tonight we're meant to be exploring. What do you think? What's the greatest gift? Anyone got any? Someone said love. I'm not going to say that's wrong. Well, because there's all kind of gifts we can give, right? We can give phones and money and all kinds of things, clothes. So here is a really nice definition of what is the greatest gift, which I like. What is the greatest gift? That which brings the greatest joy and relieves the greatest suffering. How's that for a definition of the greatest gift? That which brings the greatest joy and relieves the greatest suffering. That is the greatest gift. You know, everybody in life has problems. Don't you? Anyone here free of problems? You know, I mean, I don't kind of eavesdrop on people on purpose, but, you know, sometimes you kind of hear things. You can just be walking by somewhere, you might even be at a cafe or a restaurant and someone's sitting there near, a bunch of people, or maybe, this kind of happens, I don't know why, it stands out to me. Sometimes my wife and I go for a walk. It's along the kind of beachfront, you know, and different people are passing in different directions. And, you know, you just kind of catch a glimmer of what the person's talking about as they pass. You ever experienced that? Just a little snippet of something. And what you notice is the majority of the time, what are they talking about? Problems. Usually relationships. He is one of the words that you catch, or she, or they, right? This is one of the words that kind of, you know, your ear catches. So you know they're talking about some problem in a relationship in their life. Trouble. And you know, when a group of friends sit down together sometimes, usually someone has some problem. And usually because there's concern for your friends and your family. So you might ask someone, you know, how are you doing? Now usually we just go, oh, okay, how are you? Right, that's the Australian way. All right, I'm okay. But you know, sometimes we open up a little bit and we kind of, because something is a burden on our heart, if we have someone who will listen to us, we may actually express what is deep within our heart, something which may be troubling us. So what kind of problems do people usually talk about with their friends, someone who will listen? What kind of things do people talk about? Anyone here ever had any trouble in your life? What's been your troubles? Everyone's doesn't want to expose themselves. It's understandable. It can be in a relationship, a troubled relationship, right? Relationship, you're not getting on well with the person. It might be something to do with the trouble. You might feel, 5 kilos, 10 kilos overweight. I'd like to lose some weight. And this is a problem that someone has. Maybe they don't like their job, right? How many people like their job after a couple of months or years? Usually it's just drudgery. So we're kind of whinging, moaning, sharing about the problems that we have in life. Health, finances, maybe, our apartment might not be the best. So there's all these kind of problems that people go around the table and share. But what if you're there and it comes to you, Radha Krishna asks, what's troubling you? Well, I have the same troubles as everyone else. But what if I say, you know what? We're all going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. We're all going to die. Isn't that a trouble? Isn't that a problem? What do you think the response of the friends around the table might be? What's wrong with him? Right? Kind of like weirded out by someone who would actually even bring that up. That's kind of weird, RK, that you're worried about, that you even think about death is kind of weird. Where's your head at? It's considered to be kind of out of left field. But actually when you look at it, this is something which troubles everyone. There's no one escapes. There was a book, I remember came out years ago, I think it was about Jimmy Morrison from The Doors, and it was called something like, Nobody Gets Out of Here Alive. I thought, that's a great title. That's a really good title for a book. Everything else, we don't want to confront this. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to deal with it. We'd rather just kind of stay on the surface, because all of these other problems, relationship problems, work problems, financial problems, they will all come and they will go. In life, sometimes things are going our way and we feel happy and joyful and positive and looking forward to the future, right? And then sometimes things are not going our way and we feel depressed, lonely, uncertain of what the future may be. So our life is described as being like a seesaw. Does anyone not know what a seesaw is? They don't exist anymore. You can travel around the whole of Australia and you will not see a seesaw. So for those of you who do not know what a seesaw is, it was an old-fashioned, kind of thing that kids played on, where there was like a fulcrum in the middle and, they had these kind of like wood things and you sat on them and you kind of went up and down, up. And that's all you did. That's all there was to it. Sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. What happens after the up? Well, you go down again. So that was, it wasn't too kind of complex. It was actually quite simple. But somehow or other, it engaged us for hours on end. So life is also like that. Sometimes you're up and things are going your way and you can see around, it all looks good. And then sometimes things are not going your way. And this up and down will always be there. It is the only thing for certain in this world is change. That is absolutely going to happen. So those things are going to be there and we deal with them as best we can. We make plans to overcome these problems and we put into action, our plan to help deal with these things. But they will still come and they will still go despite our plans. But death is one thing which does not go away. In fact, every day we wake up, we are one day closer to this experience. So whether we're 5, 15, 25, 45, or 55, we are actually coming closer to this experience. So, what has this got to do with what is the greatest gift? And what has it got to do with yoga and meditation? Well, this we are going to get to. Actually, so the greatest gift and the greatest gift givers are the great sages from time immemorial. The great sages, out of deep compassion and care for the suffering of the living beings, have actually given us this greatest gift, the gift of wisdom and spiritual love. So someone mentioned spiritual love before. The gift of wisdom, so that we actually understand who we actually are. Wisdom shines a light on our journey through life. Otherwise, we're just dancing in the dark, as the saying goes. If we cannot see where we are walking, we can fall into all kinds of holes and pitfalls and cliffs which can actually be there in our journey through life. So if someone shines a torch, a light, on your steps, on your feet, you can actually see what is ahead. So we can see our way around the obstacles and problems and troubles of life. In fact, there is a very nice Sanskrit prayer in which the person is offering respect to their spiritual teacher who actually opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So knowledge or wisdom is like a torch which opens our eyes to what? To reality. So the beginning of the reality is, as we have gone through this evening, Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. I am not this temporary body. I am not the ever-changing, crazy, destructive mind which is always causing me trouble. I am the atma, the eternal living being who has no beginning and who never dies. So this knowledge, this is found in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains the nature of the self, who is eternal and ever-existing. The self is undying. The self can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, moistened by water, withered by the wind. Time has no effect on me, the spirit soul. So this beginning of spiritual wisdom eliminates the sting of death. Because I understand that I do not die. Those who I care for and love, they are not their physical bodies or the ever-changing mind. They are the eternal spark of the Supreme, only temporarily in a particular body. And when this body is finished, the living being continues to exist because the self is eternal. So many people are afraid of death, and that's why we would rather stay on the surface of life and just talk about these problems which are temporary. Oh yeah, no, my job's really shitty, and there's a pimple here this morning, or whatever, getting bags under my eyes. We would rather stay on the surface and deal with these kind of problems because we're afraid to go deeper, because we don't know what might be there. If I abandon, all of the superficiality that my life can become and try to go deeper, we're afraid that we may not find what we are looking for. So yoga wisdom actually is that gift in which we understand who we are, what is our purpose here in life. I can actually lead a purposeful, meaningful, and satisfying, joyful life based upon true understanding or wisdom. And I can also have a fearless death. So this wisdom is actually the greatest gift because it gives me this. It gives me a meaningful, joyful life now, and it makes it so that my departure from this body is fearless. So this is the point that I wanted to share tonight. Is, it might seem, we come, particularly those of us who come here regularly on Sunday, yep, chant, that's nice, that was nice, oh, a new tune, oh, that's nice, Madhula has a beautiful voice, yep, and then we have a talk, and okay, yep, nice, and then we get into chanting, and then we have something to eat. So it's kind of very easy just for it to kind of wash over us and not take the time to sit and consider, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How can I apply this wisdom in my life to make my life better? That is what we're meant to do. So it's very easy to fall into that kind of week in, week out, kind of this is what I do. But we are also meant to take time in our life for introspection and contemplation upon this wisdom, and then understanding how I can apply this understanding to my life. We've spoken about this idea before. Okay, death means a journey. We're all going on a journey. So we've used the example many times. If you were going to go to America on a journey, you would plan, when am I going to go? Right? First of all, when am I going to go? And I think maybe even second would be, how am I going to get there? Right? You've got to make a decision and plan that. Am I going to walk to America? Am I going to swim to America? Well, probably not. So I make a decision, I'll fly to America. So then we've got to find out when the flights are and where they leave from and how much they cost and arranging all of that. Perhaps you have to arrange a visa and so many different things. Decide how long you're going for, what you're going to pack, where you're going to go when you get there. So it's just common sense that we actually plan ahead so that our experience of that journey is a joyful one. Similarly, and even more importantly, we will all go on this journey which is known as death. We will leave this body behind. Okay, where am I going to go? Isn't that a fair question to ask? Where am I going to go? How do I get there? Where is there? Right? So we also understand from Vedic wisdom, yoga wisdom, that not only are we spirit soul, but there is the Supreme Soul. And each one of us has an eternal relationship with that Supreme Soul. Just as we are individual spiritual personalities, our individuality is not coming from our physical body. It is our eternal spiritual nature. And just like there is this material dimension with all of its planets and atmosphere and all the variety of things that happen here, there is also an eternal spiritual realm. And that is where we belong. That is where we are from, and that is where we belong. And our spiritual journey is actually described to go back home, to go home from where we have come from. And in that home, that eternal spiritual dimension, there is no birth, there is no disease, there is no old age, and there is no death, because there is no material energy. It is only in the world of matter and material bodies where there is birth, diseases, old age, and death. But this is foreign to me, the atma, the spirit soul. So to go back home is our destiny. And we have an eternal, loving relationship with the Supreme Person or the Supreme Soul, who is known by many, many different names. And the name Krishna is the most beautiful name of that one Supreme Being. Krishna means all attractive. The name Krishna means the Supreme Soul is all beautiful, all loving, all wise, unlimited qualities of the Supreme. So to re-establish that lost or forgotten relationship with the Supreme Friend, the Supreme Soul, this is the goal of yoga. In fact, the word yoga can be translated as relationship. You know, we think of yoga as being twisting our body, standing on our head, etc., etc. But actually the deepest and most complete understanding of the word yoga means relationship. The relationship between the individual soul, the atma, you, me, and the Supreme Soul, and all other atmas or all other living beings. So the nature of our consciousness is what will determine our destiny when we leave this body behind. I'll repeat that. The nature of our consciousness is what determines our destiny when we leave this body behind. So the idea of spiritual life is to cultivate spiritual consciousness, or what is also sometimes referred to as awareness or consciousness of Krishna or the Supreme. And this is what the whole of our spiritual cultivation, our spiritual journey, is to cultivate in this lifetime through various spiritual practices, this God consciousness, to purify our consciousness of all misgivings, misunderstandings, of material attachments and material desires. This is the purpose of our spiritual sadhana. So how can we do this? This sounds like something which is overwhelming to achieve. But again, we turn to the wisdom of yoga. And herein it's described very simply. To achieve this spiritual perfection is very easy. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalo, kalo nasteva, 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 gati anyata. So this is a sloka in the yoga text. Harinama. Hari refers to the Supreme Soul. The English word name comes from the Sanskrit word nama. So to chant the holy names of the Supreme, it purifies our heart and mind and awakens that spiritual love which is already there within our heart. So the greatest gift which the great saints, the sages, my own spiritual teacher has given me is this yoga wisdom and to chant these beautiful holy names of the Supreme, because they awaken that love which is already there, that spiritual love which is already there within our heart. So this is what we're trying to do with these programs, is these gifts were given to us, and we're simply trying to pass these gifts to you. You know, it has nothing to do with joining the Australian School of Meditation and Yoga or any other organization. It is impossible to join or become a member of wisdom and spiritual love. It cannot be done. It is my own personal sadhana or spiritual practice which brings about this change of heart. So this is a gift freely given. So to accept a gift, of course, we have to have our hands open. If someone's hand is closed, it's very difficult for someone, to give someone a gift and for them to accept it. So if we listen with an open heart and an open mind, then you may find that this gift of wisdom and spiritual love, this gift of the holy names, is actually the greatest gift of all. Just to come back to this idea we started with, if I can find it. So remember what it was. Here's the test. What was it that we started with? The greatest gift is what? Yes, that gift is the greatest gift, which brings the greatest joy and alleviates the greatest suffering. That is the gift of the holy names and yoga wisdom. Thank you very much. Please consider these ideas, and more importantly, wherever you go in life, whether you are up on the seesaw of life or whether you are down on the seesaw of life, please take these sweet holy names of the Supreme and keep them with you always. You don't need to be in a temple or a mosque or a synagogue or anything like that. You can sing these beautiful names while you're in the shower. You can sing them while you're sitting on the toilet. They will not become polluted by the atmosphere. In fact, they purify the atmosphere. If you are feeling down and depressed, sing and remember these holy names. If you are feeling elated and positive about the future, sing these holy names. And as Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, my grandfather, spiritual master, says, and your life will become sublime. Thank you very much.